Commander Eliza Chen felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders as she stepped onto the crystalline platform of the Galactic Conclave. The vast chamber, carved from a single asteroid and lined with quantum-stabilized energy fields, buzzed with the multilingual murmurs of over 300 alien species. None of them made eye contact with her. They knew what was coming. Above the central dais, towering holographic displays showed real-time footage of the Artaxian Armada, positioned near Earth's moon, 200 planet-killer vessels arranged in perfect geometric formation. The message required no translation. Chen straightened her midnight blue diplomatic uniform, the last one Earth would ever commission if things went as expected. At 42, she'd spent half her life in space, negotiating with aliens who found humans unpredictable at best, dangerously irrational at worst. Now she was the final voice of a species on the brink of extinction. "The human delegation is recognized," announced the Conclave AI, its voice resonating in 700 compatible frequencies simultaneously. The crowd parted as the Artaxian Emperor himself descended from his elevated position. Standing 4 meters tall, his 12-limbed body encased in living metal that shifted and flowed with his movements, Emperor Zexitularius was an imposing sight. The neural crown hovering above his primary sensory cluster pulsed with biometric data from his 7 brains working in perfect harmony. "Commander Chen." The Emperor's voice came through her neural translator with aristocratic precision. "We appreciate Earth's capitulation. A wise decision. Your species will be preserved, albeit in a more productive capacity." A data pad materialized. Before her, hovering at the perfect height for a human to mark with a genetic signature. The term scrolled across its surface. Earth as a resource extraction colony, humans relegated to specialized labor, population control measures, the dismantling of cultural institutions deemed disruptive to galactic harmony. 327 species had signed similar documents over the past millennium. The Artaxian Empire now controlled 70% of the known galaxy. Resistance was not just futile, it was mathematically impossible according to every strategic projection. Chen's hand reached for the datapad. The chamber grew silent. Her fingers trembled. Not from fear, but from a rage so precisely controlled it might be mistaken for diplomatic poise. In one fluid motion, she gripped the datapad with both hands and tore it in half. The crack of breaking technology echoed through the stunned silence. Translation glitches rippled across the chamber as hundreds of linguistic systems struggled to process what was clearly an error. Humans could not possibly be this irrational. "By the authority vested in me by the United Earth Governments," Chen's voice cut through the chaos, "I invoke the right of sovereign challenge as established in the founding covenant of the Galactic Conclave, Article 7, Subsection 42. The Emperor's bioluminescent patterns flared dangerous crimson. Several of his counselors frantically consulted ancient data archives. "That law's 11 millennia old," he hissed, the translator failing to fully mask his incredulity. "No species has survived the challenge in living memory." Chen's lips curved into what humans would recognize as a predatory smile, but which most aliens in the chamber misinterpreted as submission, or perhaps a grimace of pain. "Then we'll be the first." The recording of that moment, the small human female standing unflinching before the towering emperor, became the most shared holo recording in galactic history, captioned in thousands of languages with the same simple phrase, "Everything changed here." "Trial by governance," announced the Artaxian Minister of Subjugation Vex Moradin, his voice dripping with theatrical malice. "The human shall face the Khazar dilemma." Chen's neural implant immediately accessed the Conclave archives. The Khazar dilemma, a simulation of inevitable systemic collapse designed to be mathematically unsolvable. Perfect. 2 Artaxian guards with exoskeletons that hummed with suppressed energy escorted Chen down ancient corridors she hadn't known existed within. The Conclave Station. The walls displayed a somber gallery, holographic monuments to 413 species that had previously invoked the challenge and failed. Some had names familiar to human xenohistorians. Others had been so thoroughly erased from galactic memory that Only these memorial markers remained. They arrived at a spherical chamber where the walls, floor, and ceiling functioned as a single continuous display. At the center hovered a holographic representation of the Khazar system, 22 worlds, orbiting an unstable red giant star. Each sphere pulsed with data representing billions of sentient beings from 11 distinct biochemical bases, with conflicting needs and incompatible biologies. The parameters are simple, Vex Moradin explained, with the satisfaction of an executioner detailing his instruments. The Khazar star will collapse in approximately 16 galactic months. You must devise a governance system that preserves the maximum number of sentient lives. Chen studied the simulation. Previous challengers? The record is 17 worlds. Preserved. Most achieve only 12 to 14. His inner eyelids flickered, and what humans had learned was Artaxian amusement. You have 6 months to prepare your solution, rather than the traditional year. A courtesy to minimize your species' suffering. Back on Earth, with the Artaxian fleet maintaining its threatening position, Chen bypassed traditional scientific institutions. Instead, she requisitioned an abandoned missile silo in the Colorado mountains and began recruiting. This is Dr. Maya Lakshmi, Chen introduced to her small team. Former climate engineer who saved the Maldives using algorithms that traditional science rejected as too disruptive. The dark-skinned woman nodded, her eyes analytical and intense. Jack Tran, game designer whose neural adaptive virtual worlds were banned for being psychologically unpredictable. A thin man with a cybernetic eye replacement grinned and flashed a peace sign. Dr. Rebecca Okafor, sociological immersion specialist, who's lived among Arctic hunters, Shanghai corporate boardrooms, and Amazon tribes with equal facility. A statuesque woman with close-cropped hair inclined her head slightly. And finally, Zoe Chen. Commander Chen rested her hand on the shoulder of a teenage girl with a neural interface crown more complex than military models. My daughter, mathematical, synesthete who sees equations as musical compositions. Officially diagnosed with neurodivergence, unofficially the most innovative pattern recognition mind on the planet. The unlikely team stared at the holographic replica of the Khazar system that dominated their workspace. Within days, the room had transformed into a chaotic storm of quantum projections, discarded food containers, and wildly branching theoretical models that would make traditional academics recoil in horror. Conventional solutions prioritize preservation of existing structures, Zoe observed, her fingers dancing through holographic calculations as color-coded mathematical symbols swirled around her. But what if instead of trying to save everything, we let parts of it die in order to create something new, her mother finished. Jack Tran laughed. The Artaxians chose this challenge because their hierarchical thinking can only imagine rearranging the chairs on a sinking ship. They've never played games where you strategically sacrifice pieces for unexpected advantages. Exactly, Maya nodded. In complex systems, controlled collapse isn't failure, it's a prerequisite for transformation. They didn't know it yet, but in that moment of shared understanding, humanity had already won. They're doing what? Emperor Zexitularius demanded, his neurological crown pulsing with agitation patterns. The Artaxian intelligence officer's upper appendages quivered nervously. Our observers report they appear to be playing games, Your Eminence. The holographic feed showed Chen's team engaged in what seemed like recreational activities. They had constructed elaborate physical and virtual simulations with volunteers role-playing as different Khazar species, competing for resources according to rules that changed unpredictably. Explain, the Emperor commanded. They call it scenario, modeling through game theory immersion. The humans take turns representing different Khazar civilizations and must negotiate survival strategies. Sometimes they introduce random catastrophes by throwing these numbered polyhedrons. Dice, another analyst clarified. Primitive randomization tools. In the Colorado facility, the team's approach was advancing rapidly. Maya Lakshmi had developed environmental algorithms that treated civilizational patterns like weather systems, chaotic but predictable through the right mathematical frameworks. Jack Tran's gaming expertise created incentive structures that rewarded cooperation between traditionally hostile simulation agents. The key insight, Rebecca explained during their third week, manipulating the holographic sociological model, is that none of the previous challengers accounted for cultural evolution under pressure. They tried to preserve societies as static entities. Zoe nodded, her neural interface crown lighting up as she translated social dynamics into mathematical expressions. It's like trying to save a butterfly by preserving the caterpillar. Sometimes, metamorphosis is necessary for survival. Commander Chen watched her daughter with quiet pride. Zoe had always seen patterns where others saw only chaos, a trait the Artaxian mindset dismissed as defective thinking. Their progress hadn't gone unnoticed. The team's cybersecurity expert detected increasingly sophisticated intrusions in their systems. After thwarting 3 digital attacks that attempted to corrupt their data, Chen ordered physical security protocols upgraded. They weren't sufficient. At 0347 hours, nanobotic assassins infiltrated the facility's ventilation system. Silent and nearly undetectable, the microscopic killers were programmed for 2 specific targets: Maya Lakshmi and Zoe Chen. The facility's biometric scanners detected the intrusion just seconds before the attack. Maya noticed the alarm first. She saw the swarm of nanobots streaming toward Zoe, who was lost in mathematical calculations, oblivious to the danger. Without hesitation, Maya threw herself between the girl and the attackers. The nanobots latched onto Maya's skin, injecting molecular disassemblers that broke down cellular structures from within. Her screams brought security rushing in, containment fields activating too late to save her. 3 days later, the team gathered on a windswept Colorado hillside for Maya's funeral. Rain mixed with tears as they stood around the simple marker. The expected inspirational speech never came. Instead, Commander Chen methodically gathered Maya's research notes and burned them on the grave. "What are you doing?" Rebecca whispered, horrified. "Sending a message," Chen murmured, making sure the Artaxian observation drones captured the scene clearly. That evening, a secure intelligence report reached the Emperor. Human research setback confirmed. Primary algorithmic architect eliminated. Project timeline compromised. Zex Talarius's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with satisfaction. His analysts projected a 94% probability that the humans would abandon their unorthodox methods and revert to conventional approaches. They couldn't have been more wrong. In a hidden subterranean level beneath the main facility, the team had already internalized Maya's crucial breakthrough before her death. The solution required embracing controlled destruction as part of the creative process. The burning notes were blank decoys. For Maya, Zoe whispered as she finalized the equations her mentor had begun, "We're going to show them how humans solve impossible problems." The conclave chamber had never seen such an assembly. Representatives from nearly 1,000 worlds crowded the observation decks, some having traveled for months just to witness humanity's anticipated humiliation. The public viewing galleries overflowed with diplomatic staff, merchants, and cultural observers, creating a multilingual buzz that the acoustic dampeners struggled to contain. Emperor Zex's Talarius arrived with ceremonial grandeur, flanked by the traditional subjugation fleet commanders in their iridescent battle armor. They spoke openly about dividing Earth's resources, debating whether humans would be more useful as manual laborers or test subjects. "The Terran competitor may now enter," announced the Conclave AI, its voice perfectly neutral. Commander Chen walked in last, her midnight blue uniform exchanged for a simple white jumpsuit bearing Earth's insignia. She was accompanied only by Zoe, who carried a small data crystal that sparkled with quantum encryption. The contrast was striking. 2 humans facing the massed power of the galaxy's dominant civilization. The ancient simulation system activated, creating a perfect holographic model of the Khazar system that filled the center of the chamber. The unstable red giant pulsed ominously, its 22 orbiting worlds populated with billions of sentient beings facing extinction. Chen inserted the crystal, and Zoe initiated the program with a sequence of commands. Murmurs of confusion spread through the chamber as the solution began implementing. The human approach initially appeared to worsen the crisis, allowing 3 smaller worlds to be partially destroyed by solar flares. Malfunction or incompetence? Whispered an Artaxian commander loudly enough for the translators to broadcast. Jeers and translator-muted alien laughter echoed until the algorithm's second phase activated. The controlled destruction created a cascade of gravitational adjustments as the simulation accelerated through months of stellar time. Stellar material from the partially destroyed worlds formed radiation shields for the remaining planets, creating safe zones in what had been lethal orbits. Most surprisingly, the affected civilizations began to adapt, forming collaborative networks instead of competing for resources. Species that had been biologically incompatible developed symbiotic relationships, sharing technologies and habitats in ways previous models had never predicted. The simulation concluded with all 22 primary populations surviving, some in altered forms or merged with others, but recognizably intact as distinct civilizations with their cultural heritage preserved. Dead silence filled the chamber until the conclave's verification AI announced, "Challenge completed. First successful resolution in 11,142 standard years. The Emperor, his bioluminescent patterns flaring violet with rage, descended from his position. "Explain," he demanded, looming over Chen and Zoe. Chen nodded to her daughter, who stepped forward, her young voice steady in the cavernous space. "Your previous approaches sought perfect preservation of every element," Zoe explained, manipulating the hologram to highlight key transition points. "Our solution understands that systems sometimes require creative destruction, like forest fires that clear deadwood to allow new growth. We didn't preserve the Khazar system, we helped it evolve." The Emperor's neural crown flashed with patterns, indicating cognitive dissonance. "You deliberately sacrificed worlds to save others. This is not preservation. It's transformation," Chen countered. "The civilizations that appeared to be lost actually merged with others, creating hybrid societies, more resilient than either original. Nothing truly died, it changed form." An elder conclave member, a silicon-based entity older than most civilizations present, drifted forward. "In all my centuries observing challenges, I've never seen this approach. The humans didn't try to prevent the inevitable. They harnessed it as a creative force." The implications rippled through the assembly. The humans hadn't just solved the unsolvable problem, they'd revealed a fundamental flaw in the Artaxian philosophy of rigid hierarchical preservation. The galaxy would never be the same. The challenge is complete. The succession is valid. The ancient AI's pronouncement echoed through the conclave chamber with finality. Commander Eliza Chen of Earth is now sovereign ruler of all Artaxian domains, as prescribed by laws predating the current galactic era. A wave of stunned silence spread through the assembly. The Emperor's bioluminescent patterns flashed chaotic patterns of rage never before seen in public. "This is absurd," he hissed, his translator struggling to modulate the fury in his voice. "A primitive species cannot—" "The law is absolute," interrupted the silicon-based elder, its crystalline form rotating to address the chamber. "Even emperors are bound by challenge protocols. The transfer of authority must proceed immediately." Protocol demanded the ceremonial blade of succession, an artifact older than most civilizations present, be used to draw blood from both rulers, symbolizing the transfer of imperial essence. The ritual began as prescribed, with Chen and the Emperor approaching the central dais. As the blade touched Chen's palm, the Emperor's control shattered. With impossible speed, he redirected the ceremonial weapon toward Chen's throat. Only her military training saved her life as she twisted away, the blade slicing a jagged path from her right eye to her jaw instead of severing her carotid artery. The chamber erupted into chaos. Security drones converged as the Emperor's guards engaged them. Through the confusion, Chen heard the elder shouting commands for emergency protocols. The last thing she saw before the teleportation field enveloped her was the Emperor collapsing, neural disruptors from conclave security having overloaded his biological systems. Chen materialized on the bridge of the Imperial flagship. Immutable. Order. Blood streaming down her face. Medical nanites rushed to seal the wound, though they couldn't prevent the permanent scarring. "Commander, I mean Your Eminence," stammered a startled Artaxian officer wearing Admiral's insignia. "I am Traz Kalarian. The Conclave informed us of your lawful ascension." Chen surveyed the bridge, quickly assessing the situation. Half the displays showed static. "Report, Admiral." "The situation is problematic," Traz Kalarian admitted, his natural Artaxian formality barely concealing his distress. "Half the fleet has gone dark. Military communications are scrambled. The central worlds have raised quantum barriers, isolating themselves. The ship's strategic officer, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with anxiety, expanded. The Emperor's death activated a contingency protocol. His inner circle of War Masters has enacted Operation Eternal Hierarchy. The Empire has been divided into military districts. They're broadcasting that you assassinated our ruler." "Show me," Chen commanded. Holographic displays revealed the unfolding crisis across Artaxian space. On dozens of worlds, purges had already begun. Anyone who acknowledged Chen's authority was being publicly executed as a traitor. The propaganda depicted her as a savage human who had murdered the Emperor through trickery. "Can we broadcast a response?" Chen asked, touching the still tender scar on her face. Admiral Traz Kalarian's upper appendages shifted in the Artaxian equivalent of reluctance. "Our transmission range is severely limited. The quantum network has been reconfigured to block your access codes. We can currently reach approximately 8% of Imperial space." Chen stared at the fragmented Empire displays, her expression hardening as she watched real-time feeds of executions and military mobilizations. A human might have shown despair. She showed only determination. "Record this message for transmission to all systems we can reach. This is how empires die, but something better will emerge from the ashes." As the Admiral complied, Chen watched the tactical displays showing War Master forces mobilizing. An empire of 20,000 years was fracturing before her eyes. She had won the challenge only to inherit chaos. "Your orders, Your Eminence?" asked the Admiral, the only Artaxian commander who had chosen law over species loyalty. "Set course for the Conclave neutral zone," Chen replied. "If we can't reach my empire, we'll make my empire come to us." "Incoming transmission from the human usurper," announced the War Master's communications officer, contempt evident in his bioluminescent patterns. "Display it," ordered Supreme War Master Vex Talarian, the Emperor's brother and self-proclaimed regent. "Let us witness the creature's pitiful pleas." The holographic display activated, showing Commander Chen seated not on the Imperial throne as expected, but at a simple round table. Her facial scar, still vivid against her skin, had not been cosmetically treated, a deliberate choice that unsettled the Artaxians who valued physical perfection. "This is Commander Eliza Chen addressing all worlds in formerly Artaxian space," she began without preamble. "The Empire is dead. Long live the Federation." The War Master's staff exchanged confused glances as Chen continued. "To every inhabited world I offer 3 choices. First, complete independence with guaranteed non-aggression and basic trade agreements. Second, partial autonomy within a loose confederation with mutual defense pacts. Third, full membership in a new interstellar democracy with proportional representation based on population and cultural significance." She paused, allowing the translators to process these unprecedented concepts. "Most importantly, I renounce centralized control of military assets. Each world contributing to the Federation's defense will maintain operational authority over their forces while following mutually agreed protocols." The War Masters erupted in derisive laughter. "She dismantles her own power," exclaimed the strategic minister. "This is why primitive species cannot rule. They lack the discipline to maintain dominance." Supreme War Master Vex Talarian raised a limb for silence. "Her weakness accelerates our victory. Prepare to broadcast our counter-proclamation." But Chen's economic warfare had already begun. Within days, Earth's diplomatic corps, experts in international relations spanning centuries of complex geopolitical conflicts, had established exclusivity contracts with crucial resource worlds. Previously subjugated species became her most fervent supporters, offering their long-hidden resistance networks as ready-made governmental structures. The Artaxian loyal worlds, accustomed to receiving resources through imperial mandate, found themselves isolated by targeted embargoes. When a key agricultural planet declared for Chen's Federation after receiving advanced terraforming technology, the War Masters realized they faced not just a military problem, but an existential one. "Impossible," muttered Vex Talarian, reviewing reports of former slave worlds becoming economic powerhouses under Chen's meritocratic systems. 3 months ago, Proxima Centauri 5 was a mining colony. Now they're exporting advanced quantum processors. "It's their freedom," explained his cultural advisor reluctantly. "The removal of hierarchical restrictions has unleashed productivity we suppressed." The turning point came when Chen activated her most powerful weapon: information. Using technology, developed by Zoe and her team, she broadcast uncensored communication channels across all worlds, something forbidden for millennia under Artaxian rule. For the first time, citizens could compare conditions freely between Federation planets and those under War Master control. On Artaxia Prime itself, the previously oppressed lower castes watched feeds showing former slaves now serving as planetary governors and fleet commanders. They saw worlds where hierarchy was determined by merit rather than birth, a concept so revolutionary it caused philosophical crises among the population. The Supreme War Master was addressing his troops when the palace alarms activated. Through the windows, he could see smoke rising from multiple districts. "The lower castes are revolting," his security chief reported, mandibles clicking with stress. "They're demanding Federation membership." "Impossible. They are genetically programmed for obedience." "Apparently not," replied the security chief, whose bioluminescent patterns surprisingly showed relief rather than alarm. "The human approach suggests genes don't determine destiny." As Vex Talarian watched his world crumble, Chen's words from her first broadcast echoed, "Empires fall when they value order over growth. The human approach embraces both." "They've broken formation at Proxima Centauri," reported Admiral Traz Kalarian, his bioluminescent patterns pulsing with rare Artaxian excitement. "The 7th and 9th War Master fleets have declared for the Federation." Chen nodded, studying the strategic hologram. Over 6 months, her Federation had grown to encompass nearly 70% of former Artaxian space. But the remaining loyalists had consolidated their forces, the most elite, fanatically loyal warriors commanded by the 5 surviving War Masters. "Movement at the Arcturus Junction," announced the tactical officer. "The combined War Master fleet has altered course." Chen watched the projection adjust, a cold certainty settling in her stomach. "They're heading for Earth." The transmission from Supreme War Master Vex Talarian arrived moments later, broadcast across all Federation channels. His message was brutally simple: "If we cannot rule, humans will not exist." 72 hours later, Federation long-range sensors detected the War Master Armada emerging near Saturn's rings. A fleet of planet-killer vessels crewed by warriors who had undergone neural surgery, ensuring absolute loyalty. The Artaxian ships arrayed themselves in perfect battle formation, their weapon systems powering up with methodical precision. The Federation defensive fleet intercepted them, but even with their new allies, they were outgunned 3-1. "Urimbi. Orders, President-elect?" asked Trascalarian from the bridge of his flagship. Chen had insisted on using that title rather than Empress, another concept the Artaxians struggled to comprehend. "Execute Operation Phoenix," Chen commanded, "and patch me through to the civilian coordinator." On thousands of vessels throughout the Sol system, mining ships, passenger liners, research vessels, even maintenance tugs, volunteer crews confirmed receipt of their unusual orders. These were not military personnel but ordinary citizens who had answered Chen's call for unconventional assistance. What followed became known across the galaxy as the Dance of Chaos. Instead of conventional formation warfare, Chen implemented strategies drawn from Earth's most unpredictable military histories. The Federation military vessels executed maneuvers based on ancient Mongolian horseback encirclement tactics, translated into three-dimensional space. They performed rapid flank attacks followed by apparent retreats that lured Artaxian pursuit ships into prepared ambushes. Civilian mining vessels deployed asteroid fragments, using principles adapted from Vietnamese tunnel warfare, creating navigation hazards that disrupted the Artaxians' perfect formations. Passenger ships executed coordinated micro-jumps that confused enemy targeting systems, appearing and disappearing in patterns based on the murmurations of starlings. Most controversial was Chen's implementation of Greek fire ships, unmanned. Vessels loaded with antimatter payloads that drifted seemingly disabled until they were within range of Artaxian capital ships. The War Master battle computers, programmed with 20,000 years of conventional warfare tactics, could not predict movements based on Earth sports plays, animal behaviors, and seemingly suicidal approaches that masked actual attack vectors. "This is madness," exclaimed Vexus Talarian as his flagship's shields buckled under another unexpected assault pattern. "They fight without order or discipline." The battle's turning point came when Chen opened direct communication channels to the neurally modified crew members. "Your commanders have altered your minds without consent. In the Federation, all beings have the right to self-determination. Surrender, and we offer neural restoration and full citizenship." The concept of dignity and surrender, something the War Masters had never considered, created cognitive dissonance with their programming. Hundreds of crew members broke conditioning, turning on their commanders. The final War Master, rather than accepting defeat, initiated his vessel's drive overload sequence, positioning to detonate near Earth. On his bridge, rebellion erupted as his engineering crew disabled the self-destruct mechanisms and ejected the core into Saturn's gravity well. As the final Artaxian ship surrendered, Chen stood on her flagship's observation deck, watching the superheated plasma of the core illuminate Saturn's rings in a spectacular aurora. "Beautiful," commented Zoe, standing beside her mother. "Yes," Chen replied, touching her scar. "Destruction can sometimes create something wonderful." 2 years after defying an empire, Commander, now President-elect, Chen stood at the center of the transformed conclave chamber. The room that had once witnessed her shocking challenge had been redesigned with symbolic intent. Gone was the towering dais that had elevated Artaxian emperors above other species. In its place stood a perfect circle of equal positions, arranged to ensure every representative could see and be seen by all others. Representatives from 1,246 worlds filled the chamber, their diverse physiologies accommodated by adaptive environmental fields. Many species were participating in galactic governance for the first time in their history, having been relegated to subject status under Artaxian rule. Chen's scarred face, now a symbol reproduced in artwork across 1,000 worlds, showed signs of exhaustion but unwavering determination. She wore a simple white uniform devoid of military insignia or imperial symbols, another deliberate choice that communicated the nature of the new order. "Today we ratify the first Galactic Constitution," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber through personalized acoustic channels. "A document that has required 17,000 pages to accommodate the diverse needs of all member species." The holographic display showed the Constitution's preamble in multiple languages, with one core principle rendered in enormous script at its beginning: "No voice shall be silenced." "We have debated, compromised, and sometimes struggled to find common ground," Chen continued. "Species with silicon biochemistry have needs fundamentally different from carbon-based life. Hive minds process consensus differently than individualistic cultures. Yet we have found ways to honor all perspectives without diminishing any." Admiral Traz Kalarian, representing the reformed Artaxian worlds, inclined his upper body in what humans had learned was a gesture of profound respect. In the 2 years since the war, he had become one of Chen's most important allies, helping former imperial worlds transition to democratic self-governance. a concept that had required extensive educational campaigns among populations bred for obedience. The true test of power, Chen said, her voice softening, is the willingness to relinquish it. We humans have a saying, power corrupts. Today I formally dissolve my emergency authority and transition leadership to the newly elected Galactic Council. The 12 council members rose from their positions. They represented diverse regions, biological types, and philosophical traditions. The council included representatives from 6 previously subjugated species, 3 former Artaxian colony, worlds, 2 independent systems, and notably, no humans. Earth has chosen to decline a council seat for the first 5-year term, Chen explained, answering the unspoken question rippling through the assembly. We believe it sends an important message. This federation belongs to all of us equally. Tens of thousands of beings participated in their species' forms of acclamation. Bioluminescent displays, harmonic resonance songs, pheromone clouds, and rhythmic movements blended into a stunning demonstration of unity and diversity. The Conclave AI, its programming expanded to incorporate more organic decision processes, recorded unprecedented levels of approval. The most powerful moment came when the Artaxian representative approached Chen as the ceremony concluded. The chamber fell silent, historical enmity creating a palpable tension. The Artaxian, a reformist who had helped overthrow the War Master regime, hesitated before performing a gesture that shocked the chamber, extending a hand in the human manner. We were wrong, the translator conveyed simply. You were not too chaotic to rule. We were too orderly to thrive. Chen took the offered hand, her fingers contrasting against the iridescent exoskeleton. A historian's recording drone captured the moment that would become the Federation's iconic symbol. Different species, equal in standing, stronger together. As she departed the chamber, Zoe waited in the antechamber, now a brilliant young woman, whose mathematical insights had helped design the complex voting algorithms that made the multi-species democracy possible. Ready to go home? Zoe asked. Chen nodded, looking back at the chamber one last time. We came to save our world. We ended up changing the galaxy.